Welcome, students. I hope you enjoy the second term. This is our play. It's called The Merchant of Venice by William Shakespeare. The cover of the play. What is the title of our story or play? The title is The Merchant of Venice. Who is the author? The author is William Shakespeare. What does merchant mean? Merchant means a trader. From the title of the play, where do you guess the play took place? It took place in Venice, Italy. Where do you think the characters are? If you are looking at the cover, where are the characters? The characters on the cover are in a courtroom. Do you think Shylock is the merchant that the title represents? If not, who is he? Shylock wasn't the merchant which the title meant. The merchant was Antonio, and he's not on the cover. He was a Christian beloved merchant in Venice. Which kind of literature is The Merchant of Venice? It's a drama for a play, and also it's a comedy because it has a happy ending. Which era did the author live in? The writer lived in the Elizabethan era, reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Here is a brief biography about William Shakespeare. His parents were called John and Mary Shakespeare. His date of birth, he was born on 23rd of April 1564. His wife was called Anne Hathaway. He was married on 1582. He has three children, a twins and a firstborn girl. He was born and raised in Stratford upon Avon. His prime working years spent away from family in London. He stayed in London while working. Returned to family in Stratford upon Avon upon retirement. He was a writer, a poet, an actor, a theater owner, and a producer. He wrote 37 plays, 149 sonnets, two long narrative poems. He died on the same day, 23rd of April, 1616, of age 52. He was buried at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon. Shakespeare was the greatest playwright of all times. He was born of a middle class family. He lived in England around the year 1600. He worked in London and retired in his birth town, Stratford upon Avon. As a young man, he worked with a theatre company. He was an actor, a poet who wrote poetry, a company manager, but most of all, he excelled as a playwright. He was intuitive, knowledgeable, observant, and a brilliant writer of all times. He wrote his plays in verse as he had a keen awareness of human mind, emotions, struggles, and conflicts of human beings. He was also clever with words and images. In his time, plays were a popular kind of entertainment, which were enjoyed by rich and poor people. The poor people stood eager to watch his plays in the middle of the theater. The whole play, while the rich sat in boxes around the edge of the theater. He wrote great poetry, sad love stories, and often silly comedies too. He found his stories for his plays in history books and in collection of old tales. Some of his plays are tragedies, serious plays with unhappy endings such as Macbeth, Lady King Lear, Hamlet, and Romeo and Juliet. He wrote also some famous comedies, light-hearted stories that have happy endings, such as A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, The Tempest, and The Twelfth Night. This is the theater, how it was. The poor people stood in the middle, while the rich people stayed in these boxes around the edges of the theater, and the stage is in the middle. At the beginning, we'll explain the elements of literature. What of the elements of literature? Literature can be defined as words written in a way to convey feelings, emotions, and understanding. Literature can be categorized as fiction, poetry, and drama. What is fiction? It's a story that is written with imaginary characters and events. What is poetry? It's an unusual form of writing. It has rhythm, flow, and rhyme. It is filled with emotions and comes from the heart. What is drama? It can be classified into tragedy and comedy. It is written to be performed by actors on stage. Every story has a theme. What is the theme? The theme of the story is the central idea. Some examples of themes are love versus hate, forgiveness, innocence, revenge, appearance versus reality. And what is the plot? The plot is the way incidents or events in the story are presented and arranged to shape the story and provide it with a direction or a goal. How and why. And also the characters. Of course, every play or story has its characters. The character is a person represented in a film or play or story. Who is the narrator? The narrator is a character who tells what is happening in a book or film or a play. The conflict. The conflict is the problem that must be solved. What is the setting? Is the time and the place of the story. What is the irony? It is a technique of saying one thing but meaning another, such as satire or sarcasm. Both are the same meaning. Here is the setting of our play. The Merchant of Venice is set in Venice. Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice is set in Renaissance Venice, with a few scenes in a fictional Italian town called Belmont. The setting is important. Venice was one of the wealthiest towns in Europe, as it was right on the sea, with excellent shipping facilities for trading with the East. There was a big Jewish population and a ghetto where they lived. They were hated by the Christians community, although its members went to the Jewish money the money lenders, when they needed to, as occurs in this play. The play is partly about the relationship between Jews and Christians who have to live side by side in a very small space. The story springs from that clash in Venice. Here are the main characters in the play. Of course, there are more characters, but we displayed the main characters. We have Antonio, the main character. Antonio was a moneylender, but also a merchant. He was quite different from Shylock. He liked helping others when they were in trouble. He often lent money without interest. Shylock hated him for doing this, as helping others was bad to Shylock's business. His friend, best friend, is Bassanio. Whenever he needed money, Bassanio returned to Antonio for help. He fell in love with a rich woman named Portia. He borrowed from Antonio to buy gifts before proposing to Portia. As always, kind Antonio helped him and agreed to lend him money, but he didn't have the money. Here is the rich lady whose Bassanio loved. Portia was a wealthy lady who, who was loved by Bassanio. She inherited from her father a lot of money, who recently passed away. Before he died, he set up some conditions for suitors who wanted to marry her. They had to go through a test to win her hand in marriage. This is the villain. Our villain character is called Shylock. Shylock was the Jewish moneylender. He was greedy, living in Venice, Italy. He made a lot of money by lending money to people and charging them high interest. People in Venice hated him because he was Jewish and greedy, but he didn't care. He hated everybody, especially Antonio. The plot of the play. The Merchant of Venice is a romantic comedy which is divided into 5 acts and was published in 1597. Antonio, a Venetian merchant, had a close friend named Bassanio. One day Antonio, his friend asked Antonio for a loan because he desperately needed money to court Portia. Court means to propose to her, who lived in Belmont. Portia lived in Belmont. Antonio agreed but was unable to make the loan himself, so he borrowed some money from a moneylender named Shylock with exorbitant interest rate. Shylock Shylock would also claim a pound of Antonio's own flesh if he couldn't pay back the loan. Antonio had Antonio had lost all of his ships and couldn't pay back the loan to Shylock. Portia heard the news and decided to become Antonio's lawyer and disguised herself as a man. Finally, she saved him in court as he was her husband's close friend. I hope now you knew something about the plot or the main incidents of the play, and we'll continue with the play in the next PowerPoint. Thank you.